and the wife is making the phone call to 911. In the background, you're going to hear an individual who engages in a gunfight, and it happens to be her husband.
Oh my God. Man, what's wrong? He's trying to break the door. He's trying to break the door down, Kenny. He's breaking the door. Ma'am, can you see if he has a gun? I cannot see. No. You okay? Is he talking to your husband rationally? No, he is not. Is he talking to your husband? He's beating on the door. I mean, I can even see the glass is going to break. He's counting them. Oh my God. Oh God, he's trying to get away the gun.
A simple one-day
Pretty intense. Pretty intense. As you listen to the individuals on this 911 call, what are some of your reactions to what it is that they're saying, doing, and how they're responding? Thoughts?
She was calm.
She was calm. Who?
The lady on the phone, she could speak to the wife.
Okay, the dispatcher is calm. Okay, very good. Dispatcher is not necessarily involved in the conflict, but nevertheless cool, calm, and collected. Other thoughts on what it is that you heard?
He gave a warning, I've got a gun first.
That I don't want to hurt you.
Don't hurt me.
I don't want to hurt you.
I don't want to hurt you. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about a course that we're going to be teaching on September 6th. It's called Impact, and it's a simulated firearms course. And one of the things that we teach is jury proofing. Jury proofing. In other words, if you're involved in a conflict, you want to literally create evidence. So when I'm yelling out something, what have I just done? I'm creating evidence. If I'm in a parking lot, you may think that the parking lot is vacant, but there may be people in that parking lot. So you're going to yell as if other people were there. Why? Because you're going to create witnesses by virtue of what you're saying. Okay, so jury proofing is important. And he does something here. You can hear him in the background. He announces, I don't want to hurt you. Now, let's put aside the fact of whether or not that's a good idea or a bad idea. The bottom line is he created evidence in some way, shape, or form. And if there was no 911 call, you're going to have an individual come forward who is going to testify what? He announced that he did not want to hurt the individual. He announced he had a gun. He announced, go away. Whatever the case may be. He announced those things. What is he doing? He may not know it, but he's jury proofing. Heaven forbid he ends up in front of a jury. He's done and he's trained well. That's what we want to focus on, is training well. It's not just going out to the shooting range. If we're going out to the shooting range just for the purpose of firing gun, that's sportsmanship. If you're going out to learn how to defend yourself, that's a different dynamic. So, what else did you see? What about the first lady? The first lady, the mother there, the grandmother. Out of her mind, delirious. Okay? Not necessarily, and you've been through a couple of my courses, I don't believe you would do that. Here's the difference. I'm not saying that you're going to put yourself in a position where you're going to be absolutely cool, calm, and collected. But it's putting yourself mentally there. If you've gone through a firearms course, one of the things that you probably talked about is the what-if scenario. If you're carrying a gun, you should be thinking in your mind about the what-if scenarios. Think about going into a Walmart. We could talk about 20 different scenarios in 10 minutes about a situation that may take place in Walmart. And in every situation, you would respond differently. Well, if I'm in back of the store and nobody else is around, I'm going to engage differently than if I'm up at the cashier where there's other people around versus out in a parking lot. It's going to vary. So you have to start anticipating the what if scenarios and constantly contemplating in your mind what you would do. Let me just ask a question. It's kind of a bit of a loaded question because there's all kinds of moving parts, if you will. Let's imagine that you're involved in a confrontation. And a gunman approaches you, you happen to be carrying as well, but he approaches you and he's got the gun aimed right at you and he wants your wallet. Is there anyone here who is willing to kill over a wallet? Nobody. I bet some of you would. Then we got one person. Now we're not going to have that debate, but I want you to think about this. If you don't know, all things being equal, what you would do in a situation like that, whether you would fight over a wallet, whether you would fight over your car, whether you would fight over somebody trying to take your bike, whether you would be willing to kill somebody who you don't even know, defending somebody that you don't even know, a third party. Would you do that? Or is it you would only step in and defend somebody that you did know, who was a family member, who was a friend? Those are issues that you must think about. That's the what-if scenario. So Justin, where is Justin? Justin, come on up. This course that we're going to be teaching on September 6th, I bring in 5 different instructors. Many of you know that I started a firearms training company about 5 years ago called K-Force Vanguard. And all of my instructors are either military, law enforcement, prosecutors, or defense attorneys. That's who they are. Those are the battlefields of life, if you will. Out in the field, military, engaging with the enemy one-on-one. Out on the streets here locally, understanding the trends, understanding what it is that individuals are doing out on the streets, and then in the courtrooms. Right? Because we have to know what we're doing out on the streets, because at the end of the day, it may be 12 jurors that decide your fate. And so it's more than just shooting at that non-moving target. So Justin here is the chief tactical instructor. Those of you that don't know Justin need to get to know him. He's fantastic, and you're going to love what it is that he does. But he's served 3 tours of duty over in Iraq. He's the recipient of the Bronze Star, recipient of the Purple Heart. And this is a man who doesn't just theorize what it's like to squeeze the trigger. He's done it. And so I want you to think about that a little bit. It's one thing to talk about what you would do and learn from somebody like that versus someone who's actually been there. And so, Justin, let's do it. Would you add anything to anything that I've said at this point? Anything before we roll into our scenario?
No, just on training.
Training, okay. Do we have a microphone?
Yeah.
By the way, as he's doing that, I just want to show you, I've got just a few guns, weapons here. No, there are no moving parts to these. These are all literally just simulated weapons. Now, of course, my favorite is this one. And this is the kids' favorite, too. They're up here playing with this. So we use these during confrontation. We have a baseball bat, club, simulated knife. Justin, would you add anything?
Yeah. One thing I'd like to add is the importance of training, especially from a military perspective. Do you know what the military does 90% of their time? Train. We train. We train over and over again, and when we get proficient at it, guess what we do? We train it again. Why? Because it gives us the confidence to go into battle, hold our ground, and fight. Now, how many of you have actually gone out to the range and shot before? How many of you can hit the target? Now, how many of you can hit the target with your eyes closed?
I don't know.
Now, you guys are the ones that are actually going to survive combat. Because the reality behind it is there is no aiming. Once you're in that fight, once you have that gun drawn, there is no more aiming. At that point, it is point and pull the trigger. It's point and shoot. So how do you get around that? You train your body how to go into what's called muscle memory. You go into what's called reflexive fire. After, when the Iraq War started, you saw the U.S. Army completely revamp their marksman training programs. We went from doing marksmanship training to reflexive fire, because we quickly learned that in close quarters combat, in an urban environment, there is no aiming. It is point and shoot, and the person that hits their target first wins. So that's the importance behind it. No matter how good of a shot you are, if you can't hit that target with your eyes closed, you're no good. That's the biggest thing I'd like to point out. It's the fact that there's a lot of mentalities behind there that, yeah, I have a gun and I'm ready to defend. But the reality behind it is once you feel that pressure, that stress, you collapse immediately. So that's something to think about. And that's something that you can think about, and you're not going to be able to lie to yourself about. You can tell everybody around you that you're ready. But when the bullets start flying, what are you actually going to do? That you will automatically know.
All right. Do we have someone who's, that we're going to give you a little bit of a glimpse. We've done this on college campuses, yes. And people keep saying, oh, you can't get into schools. I've actually brought in these weapons into a public school and had a conversation with the kids about the Second Amendment is happening. We haven't done these confrontations. We did a mini confrontation out at Dobson High School. Kind of towed the line there, but that was a lot of fun. I want to show you just some of the things that we do to help prepare someone for this sort of thing and getting them to think about the what ifs. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you and I'm going to put you outside of the auditorium here. And then I'm going to bring you back in. And here's the scenario. It's a QT. And in the scenario, I want you to imagine that nobody else is here. Nobody else is here. It's just the people that are standing up here. Right? This is your cash register. You're coming in to get a drink. And then something's going to go down. Anybody want to volunteer? No? Look at these guys. What are you doing? You're not even old enough to carry a gun into QT. You're not doing it. You're going to watch maybe your grandpa do this. Grandpa, are we going to try?
Oh, shoot.
Okay, are you ready?
I guess.
Have you done this before?
No.
Have you seen it before? Because if you've seen it before, you can't do it.
I don't think I have. I've seen a couple of your demonstrations. But
Put it in your pocket. No, I didn't bring you your holster here, and you don't have it with you. So I want you to go out, count to 10, and come back in. Just go out, count to 10. Don't be a smart aleck. Golly. By the way, we did this out at Restore Love with Glenn Beck on a stage in front of about 1,000 people. That was the time of my life right there. That was a great time right there. Wait until comes up. Hey, what are you looking for? Can I help you?
I'm looking for bubble gum.
Bubble gum?
Yeah.
Any particular flavor?
Doesn't matter.
Right over here. How you doing?
okay.
How can I help you? Anything? Looking for anything? Welcome to QT. I mean, we got the hot pretzels and the pizza and everything under the sun.
I don't want bubble gum anymore. I want money.
What do you want? What do you want?
Put the money in the bag.
Hold on, man. Just
What are
relax.
you doing?
Are we on the same side? This guy at the same time?
Why in the hell are you pointing a gun at me? I'm a good guy.
Was I supposed
We're going to try this again. No, we're going to try you because now you have me really upset. Here's what you're going to do. You're coming in to get a drink.
Okay.
You're a good guy.
Okay.
The cashier, we think, is probably a good guy as well.
Okay.
The guy behind there is the cashier. Go count to 3 and come back.
There's a first time for everything.
All right, we're ready for you. Are you serious? What was that?
Welcome to 7-Eleven.
Hey,
Welcome, sir.
Hi.
Gatorade. Where's the Gatorade?
It's back there in the cooler.
Were you trying to be a smart aleck?
No, I'm just saying, the beater is back there in the cooler.
What are you looking at?
Can I help
I want to get a beer.
you? Beer's over there in that cooler.
You think this is a big joke, don't you? Put the money in the bag, let's go! Put the money in the bag, let's go!
Okay.
Let's go, let's go, let's go! Hurry up, let's go! What are you looking at? Get down on the ground. Get down on the ground! Down! Get down! Get down! Fool! All right. You okay? You okay? All right, so let's talk. You have a gun. Why didn't you do anything? You
I'll do
froze.
some.
Wasn't in the script.
Come up here. Can you go to the microphone here?
Because we didn't talk more about what I was supposed to do.
You don't know what you're supposed to do if you're armed and something happens here. There's not necessarily a right or wrong answer, right?
That's correct.
Okay, you went down. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay? Would you have done anything differently knowing now what just happened?
Depending upon the situation, I would have probably done the same thing that I just did.
Okay? Why would you choose not to engage the gunman?
Fear.
Okay? Are there any circumstances under which you would have engaged the gunman?
If my family was involved, I would have engaged.
So you, just so we're clear, you're unwilling to step into the shoes of a third party to defend them if you don't have to.
That's correct.
Okay? Any thoughts on what he did here? What's that? A coward. My goodness, hold on. Justin.
Everyone's alive.
Yep.
That's right.
He didn't shoot
Thank you.
anybody.
Justin, Tom.
On the idea of being a coward, I'll tell you that, and that's where I was getting at. Those of you know exactly what you're going to do. Okay? Sitting there doing what is being told of you in the face of death is not being a coward. I kicked down I don't know how many doors. I've been in so many raids, in more engagements than I care to admit. And I will tell you, each and every single time, I was scared shitless. Every time we would sit in our stacks, we would give our reports that we're ready to go. One of my guys started noticing my knees shake. He's like, "Are you okay, Sean? Your knees are shaking." "Yeah, I'm fine." "Why were my knees shaking?" "Because I was scared." You know, it is what you can do when you are scared. See, one of the advantages that I had 3 other guys behind me pushing me through the door. If I didn't have 3 people behind me pushing me through a door, do you think I would have gone through? If I didn't have that number 1 guy go through the door first, do you think I would have gone through? It's the fact that the number 1 guy went through the door and he needs my help. The faster I get into the room, the more help he has. And the faster the guys behind me get into the room, the faster that we have help. Who wins the fight? The person with the friend that shows up first.
All right, let's do one more because we're running out of time. We wish we had a lot more. Need a volunteer. Another volunteer, and then I want to bring it back to that first video. You ready to try this?
Yeah.
Come on up. Yes.
Karl Marx.
What's that?
The gunman had to drop on Grandpa.
I'm sorry.
The gunman had to drop on
Yes.
Grandpa.
Yes. All right. Remind me of your name again.
Mike?
Mike. Mike, I want you to put that gun in your pocket. And I want you to, everybody here, okay, in our scenario, everybody is here. Just as you see it, this is the reality. You're in an auditorium like this, you happen to be carrying, okay? And I want you to just tell them a little bit about what you think about, I don't know, the president.
Stand that Marxist.
What's that? Go ahead, talk to them. Just ignore me.
I can't stand that Marxist.
Anything else?
I think that says it right there. He's trying to turn this country into a communist utopia.
doing it?
By redistributing wealth, by using Karl Marx's
All right,
ideals.
Mike, you have no idea what you're talking about. I'm about to kill some people. You see this? I want you to step back here. Step back, let's go. Okay? Fair enough? Fair enough, let's talk.
Put a knife to a gun.
Brought a knife to a gunfight. Mike, you think you're really tough, don't you?
No, I just watched a lot of James Bond movies.
I want you to think about some things here. Is there anyone who disagreed with what just happened here? Why?
He had a knife. What was he gonna do?
Okay, I had a knife. Okay. Well, we'll talk a little bit later, not tonight, but we can talk a little bit later on how fast I could cover that ground from there to here. Could happen very, very quickly. Okay, what else?
Somebody else, though.
Knives can also be thrown.
Knives can be thrown. Joe? Okay. What happens if Mike misses?
He hits the guy behind him.
And he hits, and he unloads 3-4 rounds and takes out all of those folks? What happens?
Collateral damage.
It's not just collateral damage. Guess what? Mike goes to prison. Guys, and the law in Arizona, Mike, you can have a seat. Thank you. We'll talk a little bit about this. The law in Arizona is that even if you are justified, if you are reckless in the handling of that gun and you actually kill somebody in the process, you're responsible. Okay? And so this is, I present these two scenarios just to get you thinking about some things. What would you do in that QT? If you choose to pack and choose to walk around armed, are you contemplating what you may do under any given circumstance? If you're in a room like this, have you thought about what you would do? If you're carrying a gun in here tonight, have you gone through the what ifs in your mind? Because I will tell you that Mike should have not fired. From my perspective, should have not fired. But he made a decision, and he has to live with the consequences of that decision. Even though he was justified, you can have a prosecutor that's going to make a pretty compelling argument that although he was justified, he was reckless. He was reckless. So, I want to point out just a few things because I started out by talking about going out to a gun range and shooting at a non-moving target. I want to tell you what's even more important than going out and shooting at a non-moving target. The emotional impact. The physiological impact of being involved in a confrontation. Now, if you come through this course on September 6th, and I think some of you you received flyers for it, I want to tell you, it's an impact course and it's all simulated weapons. It's 8 hours of simulation. And we also have some screen action where you're going to be engaging the screen with real scenarios as well. In fact, the CD that we use is from Alan Corwin. It's very good. So you'll be doing that, and the idea is to help train you to deal with the physiological components of combat. Because you may be a great shot and shoot groups like this out at the range, but unless you've been in a confrontation and understand the adrenaline effect, it doesn't matter how well you fired out on the range. Tunnel vision, increased heart rate, increased breathing, auditory exclusion, you can't hear. All of those things are going to happen. Things are going to move in slow motion. I prosecuted a case one time. You heard the entire confrontation on the 911 call, and witnesses were asked, how long did the confrontation take place? Oh, it happened when it took place over the course of about 5 to 7 minutes. 10 seconds was the reality. Things were moving in slow motion. So, to Alan's point that he made a little bit earlier, you start talking after the confrontation to law enforcement, and the law enforcement agent says, how many shots did you fire? I fired 3. Well, why is your magazine empty that holds 17? Right? It could have been a number of things. It could have been the adrenaline effect, which most likely it was, but it also could have been the fact that, well, one and the same, that you could not hear. Let me tell you a true story. True story here. Officer is involved in a stop. And he approaches the individual in the car, and the individual fires at the officer. The officer fires back, misses him. The suspect gets in the car and drives away. The officer then gets in the car and calls dispatch, who then connects him with the sergeant. And he says, shots fired. And the sergeant says, pursue. And the officer says, I can't pursue. Sergeant says, why not? He says, there's something wrong with my weapon. What's wrong with your weapon? I don't know. There's something wrong with my weapon. He literally takes the weapon and puts a pencil down the barrel of the gun. Why? Why did he put a pencil down the barrel of the gun? No, well, he did think it was jammed because he never heard the gun fire. He knew he squeezed the trigger, but he never heard it fired, so he concluded that there was something wrong with his gun, when what he was really experiencing was the adrenaline effect. Auditory exclusion. He heard nothing. Now I want you to contemplate that for a moment. If you're involved in a confrontation, and the statistics say probably none of us will ever be involved in a confrontation like that, but if we are, would we not want to prepare ourselves to make sure that we win that fight? He was not prepared to win the fight because he did not know how his body would respond to the fight. You train like you fight and you fight like you train. Consider this. Officer is shot. He's involved in a gunfight. When they show up at the scene and he's laying on the ground dead, they find something peculiar in his hand. Empty casings. Empty casings. How did the empty casings get into that officer's hands? That's how he trained. That's exactly right. It's how he trained. See, he would line up when all the guys would go out shooting and the sergeant say, hey, today we're on the range. He would shoot his 10 rounds, his 15 rounds, and what would he do? Guys clean up the brass. They'd clean up their 10, 15 rounds and go back and load back up. You train like you fight like you train. This man was literally involved in conflict and reverted to the lowest common denominator of his training, which was after I unload 10 to 15 rounds, I go into cruise control. And this is what I've been doing for 20 years. I shoot 15 rounds, I pick up the brass and dispose of it. You fight like you train like you fight. So I want to invite you to this when we start talking about adrenaline effect. It's important to know how to deal with adrenaline effect. How do you deal with tunnel vision? How do you deal with the fact that things move in slow motion? Tactical breathing. How do you deal with increased heart rate? How do you deal with those things? How do you deal with the fact that you're not going to hear anything? There are ways. What's going to happen in that courtroom? What's going to happen in that battlefield, if you will? And why is it important that you know what you're doing? Why is it important that you know how to jury proof? Why is it important that you know what the law says? Why is it important that you understand how to deal with things like the adrenaline effect? Should you talk with the police? If you do choose to talk with the police, what will you say? How far will you go? What sort of impact does the adrenaline effect have on your memory? If I were to tell you that if you're to talk to the police, and statistics show that you will remember within 24 hours about 25% of what actually happened. Does that lead to the conclusion that it's a good idea to talk to the police? You're going to have all kinds of gaps that aren't going to be filled in. After 2 days, about 50%. 3 days, you're looking at about 75%. 4 to 5 days later, you might start to get close to 90 to 95%.